Hi, this is Amir Anzur. I'm with Naveed Khawaja, who is the Chief Purpose and Vision Officer of AgileEI.com. He's a real guru that's been in this agile space for, well, a few decades, I assume. But basically, he's been working with some of the largest corporates, organizations like GE to British Petroleum to University of Oxford, where they've looked at agile. So, Naveed, just what is agile to begin with?
To me, agile is a mindset, and that mindset requires a lot of unconscious and cautious effort on people to make sure that they appreciate the shorter feedback cycle on things and the iterative and incremental approach to life. It's not just with technology, it's not just with business. It's a mindset that you can apply in every aspect of life.
So, how did you get started in agile?
About I would say around 15 years ago, when one of my businesses was struggling. At that point, I was in Xerox, and they were trying to compete with the market. So their market share was being eaten up by the top competition like HP and Canon. And these organizations were going really fast. They were, again, the faster time to market, the shorter feedback cycles, the continuous improvement. They were better at all these three things than Xerox. So Xerox went through this transformation called agile transformation, and I was quite an active part of it. And that's where I came across this concept, and I loved it. So very close to my heart, very close to my nature, and this is where I really found my passion. So the ultimate outcome was that we managed to, with that agile transformation, we managed to produce the world's fastest uh, black and white printer in record time. And we also managed to produce the world's cheapest color printer with solid ink. That all was the benefit of agile, lean, and all these related methodologies.
So, what did you do that was different, making it so much faster out to market than what would have traditionally happened?
Yes, so the core concept of how agile mindset benefits people. So let me help you develop these core constructs of agile. So agile as a mindset comes at the top. Then there is agile methodology that is tied with that mindset. So being agile means a lot of things, and I'll cover that later. But keep that in mind: agile mindset and agile methodology. And then comes the concrete part, which is the frameworks. So within the agile methodology, there are various frameworks like Scrum framework and DSDM and XP and many others. And these have proven their value in better engineering practices, better customer satisfaction, better employee satisfaction, and all the overall positive impact on the culture. So the methodology, the mindset, and the frameworks work together. You cannot implement a mindset directly in your life. You need a framework to help you implement that mindset. And that's where the knowledge and understanding of frameworks comes in as well. So what I do, or what I have done in the past, is trying to understand and contextualize what the business need is, what their contextual challenge is, and then apply the right framework so that they can benefit from agile. Because it's all horses for courses. If you try to implement a wrong framework, even the best of the frameworks cannot help you. It's like you're trying to have soup with a fork. It's not the fork's fault. It's your choice of the tool. Same goes with the Scrum or Agile frameworks as well. So people try to implement Scrum framework in operations, for example. It's a big mistake. It doesn't work. It's not made for that. There is Kanban for it. Within the Agile mindset and methodology, you need to choose the right one. That requires a lot of knowledge and experience. And I made those mistakes in the early stages as well. I saw businesses trying to shoehorn frameworks and methods in their context just because they knew one thing. And you know this common understanding where many people use this, like, okay, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So they're just trying to use that hammer to hammer in that framework, the Scrum framework, everywhere. It doesn't work. So from my perspective, the way we have changed or implemented this is we try to implement it at the leadership level and the program level, portfolio level. and then the teams level. Three different types of implementations of Agile. Yes, the ethos is the same, but the implementation has its own repercussions. And unless you're working on a culture, the culture of an organization that transforms, that brings in cultural agility, none of this is beneficial. It's just a waste of time. It's just like you're trying to get a membership of a gym, assuming that it will help you. No, you have to go there. You have to be consistent. You have to develop the habit. You have to make sure that you do things on at a certain frequency, in a certain uh, intensity, to make sure that you benefit from this. Same goes with Agile. There are practices, principles, you need to apply them on a daily basis, weekly basis, fortnightly basis, quarterly basis, 6 monthly basis, yearly basis. And those horizons are different for different levels. The core concept is still shorter feedback cycle and continuous improvement mindset. You learn from your mistakes, you be proactive, your next day is always, or you try it to be better than the previous day. That's Agile in a nutshell from my perspective.
Awesome. And so if you talk about the mindset, what is the mindset that someone can apply to their life, for instance? Like, let's say a 40-year-old executive can apply to their life. What would be that agile mindset?
Okay, and so thanks for bringing that up. Many of the senior leaders come for executive coaching from me on these aspects of how have I successfully implemented Agile in my life, not just at work. They've seen that I've run those workshops and consultancy engagements and all those different assessments, all done all of that, but they are really interested in the life, the actual personal side of things. And I'll give you an example. So I have 5 kids, and my youngest experiment was my 6-year-old daughter, who I trained in Kanban. So she visualized her day. I was homeschooling her at that time. And it's a very famous video that I use in all my training programs. I show them that if my 6-year-old can use Kanban, that agile mindset, in visualizing her work, prioritizing her work, managing the stakeholder, which was me, and then making sure that she achieves what she needs to achieve in that day, while keeping aligned with the weekly targets and the monthly targets. If a 6-year-old can do it, obviously a 40-year-old successful professional leader can do it. It's just that they haven't come across this method. And for me, it's the core is your commitment to transparency and visualization of work.
So let's say there is a 40-year-old executive. How would you get them to do it? Would you say to them, set up a Kanban board and
yes,
and
so so very, very simple. Exactly what I did with my 6-year-old, I will do with the executive. I've done that with so many of them across the globe, actually. All we do is we say, okay, list down all the things that you're doing. Let's say you have 4 different businesses and 20 different big programs running, and you've got hundreds of people working for you. You still have a list of things. You have your priorities. So list them down, use your sticky notes, and write down each item on a sticky note. A reason for using sticky notes is you're going to move them around. And once you list them down, it might take an hour to list down everything. And then you put them all in one list. But the key trick here is you prioritize based on 2 things. One is the return on investment of it, and second is the cost of delay. Unless you have both of these factors considered, you cannot just work on things that have return immediately. Some things, if you don't do, have a much worse impact, on a negative impact, if you don't do it. So cost of delay over delivery is that concept. Now, when you list down all those items, the one rule is you cannot have 2 items of the same priority ever. So it's a vertical list. Even if you have 20, 30, 50 items in that list, no 2 items can be of the same priority. And the moment you challenge them with that, they really struggle. Like, that's the biggest pain point for them. They think 4 projects have equal priority and they have to do all of them. No, they don't. There's only one thing that you need to do. And then you prioritize and you make sure. And then you can use Eisenhower's metrics of to do this, the key thing about urgent, important, not urgent, not important metrics. And the important thing here is to recognize the prioritization mechanism that you need to use consistently. Okay. So as an executive, when I'm coaching them, 2 key areas that I work on. One is visualization of their work, because all of that is taking away some bandwidth from their amazing mind, right? That gift that they have of amazing intellectual and other capabilities, it is being wasted in juggling the priorities in their mind. You need to take it out of their mind and put that on a piece of paper, and you prioritize them so that you don't have to worry about it, don't have to remember them. Remembering these such things is a huge waste of your bandwidth. So that's one. Second is the behaviors. So the behavior is where the emotional intelligence comes in. Emotional intelligence of individuals and emotional intelligence of teams and the cultural emotional intelligence. So I have a framework on that called cultural agility maturity model. And that's where we assess organizations in all of these aspects. So when a leader or a coach, a leader that I'm coaching, when they are trying to identify the behaviors, we have a list of 23 behaviors that they can choose from. And these are the attributes of high performing leaders across the globe. List has been developed over 30 years of research. So our Harvard publication in team emotional intelligence utilizes some of those as well. These are the attributes that nobody can master all of them. We have our innate unique gifts. We need to make sure we identify what is our passion, what is what that we love to do, while maintaining a minimum performance levels in some of the core attributes that define higher performing leaders. So that's a very structured approach. That's where I take them on this journey for maturity. So one is the visualization that I mentioned, the prioritization of work, and two is their behavioral aspects of it. Once you recognize these two things you need to work on, half of the battle is done. Many people don't even pass that chasm because one is sometimes they don't recognize the value or priority of the things that they are doing, and the second one is sometimes they're very oblivious to the fact that they need improvement, personal improvement in their own behaviors or the emotions that they carry.
Awesome. And so mostly you work with executives. How do you work? I mean, is it mostly corporations that you work with?
I've worked with all different types of things, from a startup of 3 people to a corporate of 65,000 people, or even I think the last biggest one was 200,000 people. So it depends on what kind of engagement that is. I think the key thing is when I engage with organizations, I assess them. If it's a team engagement, if it's executive engagement from a leadership perspective, we've got a framework of assessment. We assess their needs of what is the pain point. We compare them with their objectives, and we help them identify what can be done to take the next step towards their improvement in this continuous improvement journey. That's the leadership side. From a delivery team side, it's much easier because it's very tangible in nature. That's where we look at their ways of working. We help them understand how the norms of their interactions work and how teams can perform better with their cultural agility and cultural emotional intelligence in play, while developing this agile mindset, making sure that their daily interactions are through an agile way of working, and helping them again continue this journey of continuous improvement forever. The perfection is never achieved. There is always room for improvement. There is always something that you can do to improve yourself, and something that is working for you right now, you might need to evolve it further in the near future, in a few months' time. So from executive level, I mentioned the teams, the way I work with them, consultancy and the assessments of them, the work running some workshops with them, helping them move the needle on the various team level behaviors and the individual behaviors so that they can become high performing. That's one. From team level is similar, but it's much more concrete because its delivery is very clear from a team perspective. So it's the same, do the assessments, trying to identify what workshops or what knowledge we need to impart on them, upskill them from a theoretical and case study perspective. Then we apply them. So we don't just leave it there saying, okay, you should learn this. You have these challenges, you should fix this. No. We actually carry them forward on this journey. And that's where coaching comes in. So the team level coaching that my team does, it's all about helping them continue this journey and take those initial very difficult steps that many people struggle with. You go to a training program, and you must have experienced it yourself. You go to an amazing training program, you are really inspired. The next day you come back, half of that is gone. Within a week, it's like, yeah, my constraints are different. I don't know what to do. Yeah, it was great, but I can't do anything. You go back to your status quo. And that's natural defense behavior that your mind develops and the heart develops. What we do is we carry that forward. We don't just teach you or educate you or train you, we carry you forward on a journey with coaching so that all that theoretical knowledge is actually applicable and customized to your context. And only then we see the benefits, and it takes a few months of coaching for the teams to really become productive. And examples are, for example, AstraZeneca, when they were going through this journey, I helped them identify their journey. I had helped them align their objectives. One of them was for first time to market, right? From inception to reality, they wanted to have their drug development process optimized, right? And the typical cycle of a drug, of a blockbuster drug, which is a billion-dollar drug we talk about, that's around 15 years. And we tried to optimize each and every step of this. Yes, there were some things in our control that we did with the agile mindset and agile programs and agile at scale and all sorts of things that we did. But certain things were beyond our control as well, like the FDA approvals and all their cycles. So we had to influence the FDA process as well to make sure that they utilize this information in the most optimal way as well. So the ultimate result was that AstraZeneca managed to produce the vaccine during COVID in the shortest possible time ever. And that, thanks to the agile transformation we did and the coaching, training, consulting we all did in there, they have doubled in their revenue and the profitability in the last 2-3 years. So after COVID, they really accelerated with exponential growth. So that's one example. They've got so many others as well. I'll stop there. Let me, yeah.
And do you think there's a difference in mindset of how executives work across the world? So an American executive might be more naturally agile than a British or a Swedish, because you work all over the world?
Yes. Reminds me of a very interesting story. So the training programs that are run, the workshops, they're very interactive in nature. So we do Lego simulations. There's a ballpoint activity, playing with a ball, and these are penny dropping moments. You come across these lean games and the energizers, and gradually we are helping people go on to this agile journey in their minds first. So it's a very carefully designed business psychology driven workshops that we run. So one day I was running this in Mexico, Guadalajara, and this was a boot camp, train the trainer, coach the coach program. And the team picked it up. It was okay, and they went through the cycles. We play the games multiple times so that they can apply that learning over the period of 2 to 3 days. And it was a typical example. So the first time they ran, they failed miserably. Second time they ran with some knowledge, they improved, and third time they did it really well, right? So that's the typical cycle of the routines or the simulations that we run. When I ran the same thing, same content in a similar way in Sweden, that's again a different boot camp that I was running. They were very, very successful in the first cycle. I was like, oh my God. So what I was going to teach them in the third cycle, on the second day, they did it on the first day in the first cycle. I was like, that disrupts everything that I've planned, right? So, and then I ran it in India, in Chennai, and they were quite different in that as well. And in the US and in the UK, every time we run it, the patterns were similar, other than this the Scandinavian experience. And I wanted to delve deep into this, like, why? What's the difference? So I talked to people, ran a few interviews, and tried to understand the root cause of why it was so powerful and very well managed by the Swedish team. And it turned out that the schooling education system is different. So interesting. The culture is different. They are known for their openness, and the creativity is much higher there because their education system encourages them to question things. And agile is all about shorter feedback cycles. That means you need to ask questions. Teams make the biggest mistake with their customers, with their stakeholders, by not asking the right questions and not clarifying assumptions as early as possible. Whereas Scandinavians work differently. So the game had to be redesigned. I was actually on my toes, changing things on that day. I couldn't sleep properly because I'm like, okay, what am I going to do the second day? So answering your question in a summary format now, it makes a huge difference on how the schooling or the culture of a country works, how the people have been developed, and also the company culture. So same concepts that are very valuable and very applicable in Sweden, for example, or Scandinavia, might be slightly different in the UK and in the US. UK, we are a little bit more reserved. We don't really talk much from that perspective. We try to experience things, and it's more of a closed culture. Whereas in the US, it's very talkative. They're very quite extrovert in nature. That's what my personal experience is running those workshops and different types of events. And they want to discuss things, and they're quite open about it, and they're very physical as well. So that so physical touch is considered quite negative in the UK, whereas in the US it's very normal. That's like, yeah, you would clap and do all sorts of interesting things, and in the UK you're very reserved. It's like, okay, your hands are tied kind of thing. Whereas in Sweden it's a kind of a balance. It's very sincere and open conversation. Now you try to map these three different cultures, and they are still similar in nature. You try to take this to Asia or Middle East, completely different thing. I ran it in the Middle East with some of the largest clients we have had, and the bureaucratic hierarchical mindset or the approach of authority, and the way, if there is a senior in the room, the way you change your uh, body language and the conversation, and you defer decision making to them while they're in the room, it just changes the whole dynamic of our games as well. So the agile mindset and the approach that we take is completely different depending on the region and the schooling of people. With for example, in South Asia, people are quite keen to have fun in those games, but they sometimes don't pay attention to the key points, the key learning uh, activities, the outcomes that we are trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they are trying to use it as a breathing space or a venting space out of their very busy routines of work. So again, it's a completely different way. There's very challenging work-life balance in the South Asian region, whereas in the Middle East, it's much more relaxed. They finish quite early, and they have a lot of fun after work as well. In the UK, to an extent, yes, depending on which domain you're working on. So it all depends on how many pressures you have had and how the agile mindset can really take you out of these to have real fun in your life.
And do you think agile mindset is important in school, in our schooling education as well? You
Yes,
think it'll be embedded?
definitely. So interestingly, Japan implements that, and they have an amazing schooling system. Finland uses it. They've got the world's best education system. We have seen some of that applied in the UK in one of the schools. So I've been doing a lot of research with Pearson on these kind of aspects. And when we visited some of the schools, one of the schools I still remember, I was really amazed by the unique, innovative approach. They have no timetables. So imagine a child going to a school that doesn't have a timetable. That means the child has to choose, and they have to be in control of their time. So the priority is managed by them. What is it that they want to learn that day? And they choose to go to that session. Similar things in Japan as well. So yes, schooling does make a huge difference. If you are spoon feeding children and you have educated them in a way that, yes, they will come to school in a regiment, they will be going through one lesson after another for 6-7 lessons a day. The teachers are going to spoon feed everything into the children's minds, whether they want it or not, whether they're ready for it or not, whether they are paying attention or not, doesn't matter. Everybody has to be in the same boat. Whether somebody is low performing or high performing, it doesn't matter, because everybody has to be brought to average. All of those, we need to fix that. And same with the universities. Why do people do the projects at the end? I was working with some of the universities in the research, right? Typically, any project that people get, they only do it in the last few days or the weeks, depending on the size of the project. They know it for a year that they have to do it. Why do they do it at the end? Because there's no agile mindset. It's a waterfall approach that we ingrain in them during their education. So applying agile, and we actually tried a few things in different universities as well. It really made a huge difference, because now people would take more responsibility. They would be continuously improving, not necessarily doing it at the deadline time. And it applies to the overall concept of our time management in life. So our coaching programs bring people out of that rut, the thing that they have been, I would say, brainwashed into, on leaving things to the last moment and only following the regiment and just making sure everything is just done to the minimum required standards. With Agile, it's more of customer centric, it's continuous improving, it's excellence driven. And for me, it is crucial that we start at our schools.
Awesome. So great. So you're working, are you primarily working with corporations, or is it also the education system is your long-term goal? What is your own vision for what you want to achieve with Agile EI and what you want to do with your life?
Yes, so we have our frameworks. So remember, so my partner, he's in Boston, Dr. Steve Wolf. He is the original founder of Team Emotional Intelligence. We did research on 3,000 teams, and we found out that there are certain, so that's a 16 attribute benchmarking of teams, high performing teams across the globe. So when we reviewed it together, I found that there were some gaps. Even though it's a 20-year-old, very famous, very well-established framework, I was like, where is agility in this? Where is purpose in this? And that's where we developed this new framework called Cultural Agility Maturity Model. That's where what we are, the long-term goal on this context is, we help organizations identify their gaps in their cultural emotional intelligence, their business agility, and their purpose orientation. Because without these three things, no business can survive. And our tagline is purpose-powered profitability. So what we do is, we want you to be purpose-oriented because that's what is going to drive the intrinsic motivation of people. But you can't just do that with woolly statements or just the mindset. You need something practical, something beneficial, something profitable as well. How do you do that? You do it with business agility. And with business agility comes a very tight kind of high productive, high performing environment. But that is tiring sometimes, because if you're sprinting for a long time, like if you ask Usain Bolt to run a marathon in that speed, when he ran the 100 meters in less than 10 seconds, he would have a heart attack, right? It doesn't work like that. So you need to understand the course and the objective of what you're trying to achieve. So to balance out the business agility and the pressures of it, you develop the cultural emotional intelligence, and you tie them in so that there is a balance of breathing space and the delivery pressures and everything else going according to the market cycles. And to keep this intrinsic motivation going and this becoming a self-reinforcing kind of mechanism, you have the purpose to drive the bigger objective. And our long-term goal is to help organizations in those journeys, as small as 10 people startups, or these large ones that we are already working with, who are hundreds of thousands of people. So there's no range, no limit to this. We can work it at a team at a time or a department at a time. It doesn't matter. It's all about the commitment from the leadership.
So what are some examples of purposes that you found for various organizations?
Okay. So yeah, please, sorry, you complete your question?
Yeah. So I mean, just you don't have to name the company, or you can do, but just so people get an idea of what they can create as a purpose for themselves.
Yes. So one of the biggest examples I have is Halma Group. So Halma Group is one of the most unique organizations in the world, I would say. They have been growing year over year for 43 years consecutively. So I'm a member of digital advisory board there. I've run some very senior level leadership workshops for them. We actually ran a leadership retreat for them in Rome, where about 300 of their top leaders came in. And they have 50 companies in that group at that time. They had 50 companies. And our role was to make sure that their leaders are engaged and they are benefiting from this group, right? So depending on the suppliers and demand and everything, different kind of combinations, the key thing was development of the collaborative mindset. And the purpose played the only key gelling role for all of them. So what the purpose we finally all aligned to was cleaner, healthier, and safer, right? The three keywords. So there's a beautiful statement that is weaved in as well. But any initiative that the leadership can think of, the board, the chairman, the leaders, the C-suite and -1 and -2s, any conversation we had in those days and afterwards as well, it's all tied with purpose. So no acquisition is done unless it's an organization that is doing something beyond making money. Okay, what does that mean? Yes, it has to be a profitable business, but it cannot have a negative impact on people or the planet. So those two. Now, what that means is unless it's an ethical business, which is going to make something cleaner for the environment, or making it safer for the people, or making people healthier. Unless these were in three, they would not, either they will not have a conversation about it, they won't even consider it for their acquisition or merger. And ultimately, all those conversations led to a very positive impact on the overall mindset. So to bring everybody together, that played a vital role, having a strong sense of purpose and implementing business agility within that. So you can't just have a purpose and leave it there as a marketing gimmick that many organizations have done, I've seen. So people say we are purpose oriented. Yes, that looks good on the media. So they might say DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, see, we are very ethical people. Or we say ESG, right? Environmental, social, and governance balance. These are, if you don't do them right, if you're not really committed to these are just marketing gimmicks. Because you can look good in the media, but you're actually not improving your people's lives inside the organization. It is always inside out from our experience. To make it inside out, you need to make sure that this purpose is lived every day, not talked about, lived every day. And the way you live purpose is to bring it into your actions, your objectives, your yearly results, your objective key result, OKRs, your key performance indicators are monitored based on your purpose. So that's one example. There are many others as well. One of the other organizations, they were struggling. They were losing 25% year over year in their revenue. And they were, their internal employee net promoter score was 51%. It was lowest across Europe. And they were at the verge of closing down that office in London. And I was called in and I was asked to do this transformation. And to cut the long story short, within 5 months, we identified the root causes. I worked with the leadership team, the management team, the delivery teams, defined or refined their methodologies and the frameworks on the way they were implementing it, reestablished the concept of trust, and ultimately managed to improve their employee net promoter score to 78%, which was a record high. And it became a huge case study across Europe. People would fly in just to hear the story of what happened, how did we do it? And we changed everything in the organization. So the purpose orientation, the objective focus, the agility, the leadership style, the decision-making style, the customer engagement, we offered the customer, the vendors and the suppliers, all of them, this agile approach. And we took away the mundane and gave it to the machine by automation. And we gave purpose to the people by helping them appreciate how they're adding value to people's lives. And there are so many other examples we could talk about, but I'll just stop there. I hope that answers the question.
And do you think people should have a purpose in their lives too? And would you be willing to share your purpose?
Yes. So I feel that if you don't have purpose, you don't have hope. And a human being cannot survive without hope. We have our bad days, we have our tough days, we have our constraints and situations where we think we're really stuck and it's a big loss situation, whatever we are in. Unless we have hope, we can go into this depression cycle. Right? And my understanding is hope is impossible without having a strong sense of purpose. So yes, purpose is critical. Yes, we all should have purpose. First is because we spend a lot more time in business or at work than with our families or ourselves. So make sure that whatever environment you're in, there is a strong sense of purpose there. Right? We spend more time with our colleagues than our families, which is sad, but that's the reality. The second one is personal purpose. It all depends on how the environment has shaped you. Unless you look at the environment with a different lens, you will not understand what your true inner calling is. So my definition of that, how to find your purpose, it's a long discussion. I won't go into that. But one of the books that can really help you is Simon Sinek's Find Your Why. I would highly recommend that you go through this. And there are some frameworks, some questions and things to help you get onto this. I don't fully agree to all of that. There are certain bits that I disagree to based on my personal experience, but it's a good starting point. my definition of my purpose is I need to do something that is beneficial to the people or the planet, right? So these two, anything that is aligned with this and is aligned with my ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese term for tying in your education, your expertise, your past experience, your family experience, your passions, everything tied together. When they come together, while adding a positive, having a positive impact on people or the planet, that's where ikigai is. Japanese, you might know, they are known for doing things for centuries, same things for centuries with continuous improvement at the heart. So their forefathers might have done the same thing, might have made the same sushi for centuries, and they try to improve it and perfect it with every generation, and they don't change that. So for them, that's their purpose. But for us, for me, how do you experience this, anything that is tied with the purpose? I'll give you one simple example. There have been times, and I'm sure you would have experienced this as well. There are times when we are working on something, producing something, writing something down, or making something that you suddenly realize hours have passed and it just flew by. Just the time just flew by without you noticing. You are in your zone, you're in your element. That element, only the being in that element is only possible when you are pursuing your purpose. It actually unlocks your true potential. You are happy to give more time to it without any compensation, if need be. You are happy to make this impact and share it with people without the worry of others copying it or taking it away from you. And it is also this this intrinsic motivation, the happiness that you get when others utilize it. So money is not the point. Yes, money should be made, but purpose is something that is beyond making money. So for me, having a successful business or successful businesses, having a decent, modest lifestyle is more than enough. I'm not after these big houses, big cars, or whatever. That's secondary to me. But what is more important to me is, what am I going to leave in this world as a legacy? My purpose is to leave the frameworks and the initiatives and the sustainable systems or institutions that will improve people's lives or improve the planet, or both. So that's my purpose.
Awesome. Naveed, thank you so much. Where can people find out more about Agile EI or yourself, and how can they connect to you?
Yeah, so agileai.com is a good starting point for my reflections. I do quite a lot of reflections in various forums, and they are on my LinkedIn generally, and some private groups as well. They are for those who appreciate my philosophy and the purpose, and only then they can really appreciate the reflection. So LinkedIn is one, the easiest one to connect, and Agile EI is the other. I do write sometimes on Medium as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Naveed Khawaja from agileei.com, the Chief Vision Officer. And this has been Amir Anzur with Naveed. Thank you.